Good day, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Jaap Brinkman. I'm the host for today. I'm the director from Sequal Consultancy, and as a director, I see a lot of questions popping up regarding ServiceNow. So this webinar is a guide for every manager, or how to get more from ServiceNow faster, or let's say how to finally make money with ServiceNow. So we do have two specialists, and I let them introduce themselves. We have Sascha in the call and we have Mel in the call. So Sascha, can I ask you to do a short introduction?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jaap. Yeah, my name is Sascha Wildgrube. I'm a technical consultant in the ServiceNow Expert Services organization with ServiceNow and on the platform since about 6.5 years. And since then, helping customers to modernize their processes, get their security ramped up, automating their CI/CD pipelines and QA mechanisms, and eventually help teams to be more effective and more efficient.
Right, and you do have a lot of followers everywhere. People ask you a lot of questions regarding ServiceNow, so very happy that you're in this webinar. Mel, can you do a short introduction as well?
Yeah, sure. I'm Melhem, or everybody calls me Mel. I'm based in Munich, nice, but at the moment very hot part of Germany. And I'm working with ServiceNow as an architect actually already since 2009, so quite right from the beginning. I'm a certified master architect and I'm guiding actually customers in how to enable the platform for their business and also how to operate and keep it healthy. And that's my job day in, day out.
Thank you very much, Mel. And we do a few projects together. So happy that you're here. Well, let me give a short introduction regarding this webinar. I just mentioned already the title, but we help you, project leads, product owners, managers, to get more out of your service investment into visible results. And we build our discussion on the topics that actually determine success, how fast and how confidently your team can deliver. So every manager walks away with one clear practical thing to change after this webinar and everybody's happy. I'm sure that you will get a lot out of this webinar. So we had a chat before to make sure that we can help companies to get 100% of the ServiceNow AI platform. And I think that is a very good topic to at least highlight during this webinar, the AI platform. So Sascha, the first question obviously is then for you. You said before that the real struggle for customers isn't capability, it's speed. Why do you think that's the case, even with such a powerful platform as ServiceNow is?
Well, with power comes a lot, or this power is based on a lot of capabilities and a lot of, let's say, moving parts and ingredients that need to be put together in a meaningful way. And despite the many tools and many options that you have, it all starts, of course, with identifying what do I really need, which switches do I need to pull in order to get my business value up to speed. And the sheer amount of options sometimes is overwhelming for customers. But to be quite honest with you, I'm less on the what's the right thing to do part. I'm more like on the do things right part. Yeah. So once you made your decisions, okay, what to achieve this, and this is like the part of the platform that is most beneficial for my business needs, how do I actually build things and how do I quality control them? How do I govern them? How do I bring them out of the door? This is indeed an area which many customers are still struggling with. So it's probably really getting a team up to speed in a literal sense, not just, doing what they know they need to do, but doing it in a fast and controlled way.
Thank you very much. Well, you see that a lot of managers are very happy with the ServiceNow platform that will solve all of our problems. They buy the license and then it's all eyes on the team to deliver. So guys, how do you think that project leads or POs can turn that pressure into momentum instead of stress? And how, it's a long question, how can they make sure they deliver added value to the organization? Who would like to go first, Mel?
Yeah, maybe let me pick it up, because in my whole career, I have found out that actually the buying a new tool was already for the management of many of my clients was the thing to do, and buying a new tool solves all their problems. but this is not really the case. So my approach is always to identify what is the roadmap for clients to really get the most out of the platform, and not seeing it as a one singular tool, but taking all capabilities into account, identifying quick wins, what is easy to implement but helps the organization the most. So when I started working with enterprise software, we had actually, there was ITIL was very new, and everybody was bound to implement ITSM, and was very glad to have incident management process running to create tickets and really work on these tickets. This is not what we need nowadays. So with the platform, you can do so many things in so many business areas. I think the most important is to align the business value with what do you want to implement, and then build your roadmap, and not just see it as a tool replacement. That's the most, yeah, these are the most successful projects I've ever seen.
Right. Maybe an add-on on this question. What we see is that a lot of organizations are starting at multiple projects at the same time on ServiceNow. I think it's possible, but what do you reckon is very important to have in place to make the projects altogether a big success?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, you started the first question with the notion of what can be done from, let's say, a program manager's, PO's, engagement manager's, project manager's perspective. And of course, they won't be able to, let's say, deeply influence the business priorities, but they really need to understand them in the first place in order to give an implementation team a really clear guidance on what comes first, what comes next. Now, the second part of your question chimes into the area of, okay, there might be different business stakeholders which have all been quote unquote sold on the platform and have their own agendas, their own backlogs, and might compete or interfere with what they're doing on a single platform. Now, in order to turn this advantage of having one single platform really into an advantage in project reality, you have to define clear ownership for different parts of the platform. And this is extremely important when it comes to the base data, the foundation data. Because what I saw several times in many organizations is that, yes, there's the HR stream, and there's the IT stream, and there's the, project portfolio management stream. And each of these streams have their own budgets, they have their own teams, they have their own priorities, but they all interfere in certain areas. And there is literally often no governance on who can add fields on the core company table, to very practical example. So you really need to define the ownership for, let's say, shared areas in the platform, and really take some effort and invest some time into coordinating between these different value streams, right? So there must be a strong platform team that is not only responsible for doing deployments and day-to-day operations, but also has a say in, let's say, the architectural arrangements of the different work streams. That's extremely important.
Thank you. I love this answer, by the way. Thank you very much. So looking at ServiceNow, they are, investing heavily also on adoption and serious about closing the delivery gap, right? So before deploying, engineering, the 100-day guarantee, what does that tell you about ServiceNow vision and where the platform is heading?
Well, I mean, what we can see is that obviously speed is a concern. Right? I mean, we've seen a ramp up in investments towards AI. We have seen a lot of projects being kicked off, and we have seen massive investments in the field, both from, let's say, a market investment perspective, but also, from a project and, let's say, business budget perspective. We really want to see the value now, right? We've passed the highest peak of the Gartner hype cycle. Yeah. So at some point, we want to see some returns. And it's no secret, from many organizations, the returns don't really show in many of the projects that have been kicked off. So getting up to speed and seeing results faster is a massive concern. And I think this is across the industry. That's not specific to ServiceNow. And let's say with these growing expectations and growing demand, the 100 days guarantee or initiative is just one of the flavors by which the industry responds to, I would say, lower level of patience that many customers currently feel.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Thank you. And Mel, we know each other from the old days that we even worked on other platforms together, or maybe point solutions. And how should we as Sequal Consultancy work alongside the initiatives that we just mentioned like that. So rather than compete with them. So rather than competing with the initiatives that ServiceNow has.
Yeah, I think Sascha is fully right. Its speed is now completely seen differently in the world of AI. So even on last Friday, I was meeting a business owner after a couple of months when I was pointing him to, yeah, his ideas are very good. Maybe he should build a prototype with AI. And actually, he did build himself without a team. He built everything he wanted and built a complete new application. I think this is the expectation also when we implement a platform like ServiceNow. There's a lot of standard capabilities, but the configuration, the technical configurations being made, the planning, if you integrate with other platforms, I think by using AI the same way like business owners today use vibe coding, it's the key to speed up in delivery. So I think we need to speed up in getting the real business requirements, the quick wins, and then use AI to match even this 100-day guarantee and be not so slow and do it in 90 days because we do it technically in a clever way and we have the experts which can plan to use the AI in a proper way and not just playing around. And I think this is actually the key, combining the new capabilities we all see in the industry with the opportunities we have on ServiceNow, and not just manually deploy a team of 50 people doing everything manually with like in our old days.
Absolutely. So Sequal, you know, right? We work with the 555 strategy. One of the things is we look at efficiency, innovation, automation, TCO, security. But as we mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, some teams are under pressure to really move fast. And which of these tends to get sacrificed first? Is that really a trade-off that we have to make?
Well, I guess this is probably something Mel can relate to. I mean, we're both Germans, so in a way, we grew up on German motorways. When we say we can fast path development and do things in the right way, there is this like inherent assumption that we do have an infrastructure that actually allows us to go fast, right? I mean, you can't do 250 kilometers an hour with a, let's say, official streetcar on an official road if the infrastructure is not built to support this, right? I mean, for us, this might just be obvious. And if you ask anyone in the industry, it's like, yes, of course, we need a good process. We need automated quality controls. We need an automated deployment pipeline. But the reality is often that these things just don't exist. And I would say in order to deliver on the promise of even moving faster and using AI in a productive and safe way, we have to establish the infrastructure. Right? Doing manual deployments, doing manual testing, doing everything without, let's say, structured source control reviews, etc. This is just no longer good enough, right? So in order to enable a team to deliver on the speed process, we really have to mature the process right.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hey, and we all have that once, right? That you are working at a beautiful project and there's that one architect or decision maker or product owner or whatever, a guy in the organization being the bottleneck for every decision. What do you guys think is the first thing that a project lead should change? Does it make sense to align this with high-level roadmap in the organization, like, or getting all the right people on board? So what do you have to do to make that one bottleneck, maybe even your sponsor? So what should be the perfect step to solve this issue?
What I always recommend is to build a governance structure. So to really use the motorway. Sascha says, I like that picture, by the way, yeah, with the motorway. Sometimes it's crowded, but I think we need the infrastructure. There's this DevOps pipelines is definitely something somebody should think about. But on top, the governance structures we usually recommend to build are not bound to be only led by one person, but it's typically a group of persons to look at the demands coming in from the business to the platform, making architecture decisions, and also look at the strategy. There should be always boards in place, depending on the size of the organization, of course, to enable the organization to find the right decisions. And then on the motorway, instead of the old backlog user story Scrum topics, if you really build a DevOps pipeline and have the automated testing, automated deployment in place, you can execute fast. And I think these two should go in combination. Otherwise you cannot deploy your cars on the motorway, which you have built.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. By the way, as as a person from the Netherlands, I know the German motorways as well, and I fully agree that you have to have automated processes in place because we are not used to drive our car on such small places by the bouwsteller, right? So if that's automated, that would be perfect. It would help us as well as Dutch people driving in Germany. By the way, when new initiatives are coming in from every direction, different departments, priorities, etc. So you have that roadmap already. You agreed upon the way to work. How should a manager go about prioritizing what to tackle first if all these new initiatives are coming in as well?
Well, I guess ultimately this is really a question that only the business can answer. And I think it's part of the reality priorities will change, right? So I assume, at least let's say from a project execution technical point of view, there's little guidance that we can give with regards to the priorities of the business. I mean, ultimately, this is their job to figure out. And there's no like one size fits all answer to this, I guess, other than applying a formula that says, okay, here's an investment X, and this is the value you want to get out of it. Do the subtraction. Now, the problem is both of these values are unknown. Yeah? So I'd rather say start small, yeah? Do small experiments, see where it's heading, and then work on small cycles. Now, but this circles back again to the idea of we have to enable a team to really move fast, and the business must be able to provide the guidance on priorities. There was one aspect of the previous question where you said, well, sometimes an individual becomes a bottleneck, especially when it's around, let's say, being the main stakeholder of answering architectural decisions or confirming architectural designs, which we see in many organizations. My guidance to individuals like those is use instant scan. It might really be very technical, but it's best known ways to really scale architectural decisions, right? If you made a decision of whatever kind, build applications like this, don't use this technology, use that instead. If you use this, do it in this particular way. An architect should not be bound to have to ask or to answer these questions again and again for every single use case, or even look into it in every single use case. But such decisions, once made, should scale, should be applied and checked automatically.
Thank you. Yeah, I absolutely agree here as well. And then the most important question probably, because it is hard to make big successes. So start small. You have small successes. I like that. But if you guys have to give a piece of advice, and I will ask you, Mel, first. If you have to give one piece of advice to the platform owner who wants to get more value out of ServiceNow faster, what would it be?
It's indeed invest once in your tools and in the infrastructure, like that automation of your process, of your deployment development process, especially the testing process, because it may be an investment in the beginning, but it will turn out to then give you that motorway you need to drive demands faster. And of course, it's not one, but let's combine it in one. Be first in looking at the opportunities AI is providing to also deploy faster and realize the demands. So not only, of course, AI is important when looking at automating business processes, but also look as a platform owner, what does AI provide you for your job? Because it's already a lot and it's getting more and more every week. I think Sascha can add on that a lot, or on his websites and his information he's sharing. It's a lot of valuable information in that respect. But yeah, that would be that 1.5 things I would do.
That's very good. What I see here is that Sascha gave a lot of advice already, and I like the 1.5 instead of 1, but thank you. But Sascha, it's hard because you gave already a few good words of advice, and now I'll ask you to what is the most important one, but I'm still doing that. Can you provide us with the answer?
Well, from a technical governance perspective, by far, and this is really start here, and then there's a lot of void and nothing until all the other good stuff comes, is get your head around instant scan. This is really the Swiss Army knife, literally, of getting your code quality up to speed, aligning your team on, let's say, technical standards that you define as a team, right? There's no one size fits all. So it's certainly an effort, it's an investment to build your own checks that represent your decisions that your architect or the architecture team makes and wants to execute in the team. So start here, with Instant Scan. This is really by far the most important thing that you can do. And yes, this also means, we all know this kind of proverb of like slow is smooth and smooth is fast. It does require some investment upfront. And yes, it may feel that you're slowing yourself down by making this investment. And the same is true for automated testing. But you are getting so much faster in midterm that it's always worth the investment to automate your pipeline, your process.
Thank you. So going back to your project then, how do you know when it's time to bring in outside help versus push through with your own team? What you see quite a lot.
I guess that one's for you, Mel.
And you being Mel.
So that's a difficult question, actually. So I've seen in many occasions where I work with well-established customer teams that bringing an outside view, even if the platform is running already for years and everything is fine or seems fine, is always a good idea, because there's a different aspect when you as a customer with your team run ServiceNow for multiple years. You will know your own environment in and out. You will visit LinkedIn or websites like Sascha's websites or the Sequal website for news. But what you never have is, you never have that implementation view of maybe 50, 60 other projects which have been done in that time. So it sounds strange being an advisor, but I would always go for certain points in time for some strategic or technical advice, either by ServiceNow, like guys from Sascha, or external, like you and me, Jaap, to just get maybe some stuff reviewed, which has been done. And I've never seen a situation where this has not at least brought some ideas and made some of the projects more efficient. That does not mean it needs to be, you need to hire a team externally and replace your internal team. It's just that information piece which you get, a little bit of more experience you get from other clients in the same industry or people having the same problem. And as I said, I've never seen a situation where I could not bring at least some ideas to the table which were beneficial. So always is the answer. I think it should be done always, at least small advisory, depending on the size of your team.
And if you could change one thing about how most organizations plan their ServiceNow roadmap, maybe that's an add-on the question before, what would that be?
Well, from that perspective, I'd say fix your process first before you tackle the next big thing. That's especially important when customers play with the idea of going back to baseline. Mm-hmm. This is not a black and white thing, of course, that we all know that, going back to baseline is it's a fantasy, right? On the process, you will figure out so many things that you understand you need to keep because the business will not, agree to walk away from this or that capability or from this or that customization. But the attempt to say, okay, we've been operating this, we've been building this over years, and now we reached a point where we feel like we're slowing ourselves down, the technical debt is too large, we can't maintain it anymore, so let's, strip away most of the customization and, let's say, start over with a cleaner slate. It's Einstein who said that his definition of insanity is to do the same thing again and expecting a different outcome. I sometimes feel like this is really what's happening in back to baseline projects. So before you fixed your process, you shouldn't even be thinking about that, because even if you have that large exercise, this large project of ramping up a new instance and, selectively shifting customizations over it, and maybe even you start off with a relatively clean, low customized version of what you did before, great. Yeah, you can say, well, the back to baseline project's a full success. But if an organization doesn't change their process, they will end up in the same mess in 2 weeks, or let's say in 2 years' time, right? So fix your process first.
Thanks a lot. Hey, and what is the most common mistake you see project leads make in their first days on a new initiative? Mel?
The biggest mistake, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I think when an initiative starts, everything is always fine, right? So there is no real mistake you will see at that point in time. But I think probably Probably the biggest mistake I would consider is that the business priorities are not taken into account, but it's considered to be, I think I said this in the beginning, it's a technical implementation of something which already was there and we just replicate what has been done. So I think the biggest mistake probably is not to see this as a business enabler, such a project, but just execute a technical implementation.
Thank you. Hey, and we talked about mistakes that we can make. We talked about the best way to start, but ServiceNow is adding a lot of value to organizations. If you have your business processes clear, if you know how to run your processes, if you know how to align on the platform, if you can automate, you can speed up your processes, you can speed up your delivery. So let's also focus, and maybe that should be the last question first to you, Sascha. What if you start with a project? What are the early signs that it's also moving in the right direction?
I'm very aware that this is kind of a, let's say, very debatable and contested opinion, but what I see very often, let's say in the beginning of an initiative, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of unclarity, the backlog is not properly populated, even the business has difficulties to describe their priorities. I mean, maybe even the ServiceNow platform as a whole might not be something that the business has asked for, but, IT senior leadership says, this is the way we do things in the future. And now, you have to clean up your messes in the old legacy tools and shift and lift it over. So there is a lot of unclarity and a lot of uncertainty. That's quite normal. However, many people thrive for structure. They thrive for control. They try to bring order to the chaos. That's okay. However, I do believe that some initiative leads, some project leads rely too much on, let's say, organizational structures and Scrum work metaphors to get a grip on this chaos. So I would say if a lot of time is spent on really understanding what we need to build, and a lot of time is spent on getting the process right and getting the technical guardrails up and running, even before we know exactly what we need to build, that's definitely a positive sign. On the flip side, if people are very dogmatic about Scrum routines, about sprints, about a related language and structures and tools, that's probably a warning sign. Yeah, if there's too much reliant on, let's say, methods that already proven are not necessarily effective, just as a means to pretend there's order to the chaos, that's probably a warning sign.
Right. And if you look at success signs for project management, but also for organization, what are the typically first success signs for, well, let's say the stakeholders, decision makers?
Well, I would say and that's like a very individual, subjective thing. If you feel that you spend most of your time working, but the time you spend in meetings, you really feel like, this meeting is something I could contribute to. This meeting is something that I can take away something from. But if you feel like, or let's say this is something that you can ask your team, right? What's your feeling about the meetings that you have? And if the majority says, well, the majority of meetings seem to be spent on topics that I don't really know what I can contribute to it, I don't know really what I can take away from it, that's really a warning sign. But if your team tells you, hey, I really have productive days, right? We really don't know exactly what we're doing. And yes, there's a lot of open questions and there's a lot of uncertainty. But last week, I had a lot of conversations that really, make me feel I know more than I knew the week before. I have a clearer picture of what we need to build. That's definitely an early sign, or let's say an early indicator of success.
Thanks a lot. Mel, anything to add on that one?
Yeah, I think I would completely agree with Sascha on that, on all the topics. And as an architect, it's always a good sign is then if it's clear that the understanding of a business problem or an issue to be solved or an automation or enhancement to be done and a proper design, if it's clear in the beginning of the project that this is the focus, and not development sprints all over, but maybe even nobody is telling me anything about development, but saying this design and is right so that the platform can support the business. If that focus is visible, I think that's a good sign at the beginning. If it's a classic, or I would say a classic old way of approaching it, like I need these number of developers, these number of sprints, and nobody focuses on what to do and how to do it right. And then I'm already frightened typically.
Thank you. So last question. The introduction was about the guide for every manager, how to get more from ServiceNow from a manager's guide. I think that you answered a lot of questions. It goes from AI to steering guidance and how to guard it, work on your processes, etc. And how to finally make money with ServiceNow. I think if you have everything in order and you do it the way that you guys mentioned during all the answers that you gave, I think that you are, well, on your way. Let's talk about the motorway again. So you're on your way and to speed up fast. So the final question is maybe not a question, but do you have a final remark to how to finally make money with ServiceNow? Mel.
I think when I look at many businesses I was working with, then it's not focusing on the internal processes. Maybe use ServiceNow for them also, but focus on the customer side of your business. And it doesn't really matter which business it is. If you have production plants or you're managing apartments or whatever you're doing, look how ServiceNow can contribute to the business part and not only to internal functionalities and processes.
Thank you. So relating back to your answer regarding external resources or external advice, do you think that best practices and knowledge of certain departments, functionalities, or businesses will help as well?
Yeah, of course. If you have experience, you have automated processes for similar industries, that's for sure helping. Even maybe you already have ready-made data models, applications for ServiceNow you can reuse. So that's for sure extremely helpful.
Thank you. Sascha, for the last remark or a maybe brilliant suggestion, over to you. Do you have final remark to us how to make money with ServiceNow?
Well, again, putting myself in the shoes of a technician, I leave it to the business to figure out the value that they're getting from it. But from a technical perspective, I can at least give some advice on how to avoid wasting money on trying to achieve these goals. So at least from my observation, and there seems to be a large, I don't know whether it's already the majority, but there seems to be a large consensus that the traditional quote unquote Scrum mechanisms finally came to a tipping point where they turned out to be not very sufficient, right? I mean, the original agile ideas, they started with, okay, let's have good conversations and let's trust people, bring them into an environment in which they can thrive and they can do their work and have all the information, the tools and the environment available to do great things. Then came Scrum. And Scrum with the idea of say packaging work into 2 or 3 weeks time frame is a design that completely ignores the Parkinson law, which says any organization that is given some resources is going to extend its activities to consume these resources, which I see is pretty much happening within a sprint. So if you design the work within a sprint too small, time is just used until the sprint is over. And if the work is too much for that sprint, people make compromises on quality, which requires rework later. And it's if you bring people into an environment in which their performance, their output is measured in some sort of KPI, people will behave in a way in which it optimizes the KPI, not the actual outcomes. So if as an organization, you're willing to play that game, you will lose money in the process of building stuff. Just don't, right? Don't do sprints, don't do Scrum. Just have a backlog. Ask the business again and again for clear prioritization. Leave the technicians to build the stuff. Look at it once it's ready. It's not going to faster if you bug people. That's not going to work. Just give people the best of all environments to work with and let the magic happen.
Thanks a lot. I love this, and especially because you both gave advice based on all your experience, what you've seen. And I think this is helping organizations a lot. Again, thank you for all the answers and the really nice conversation. I really think it's helpful for, every manager in every layer who is going to work with ServiceNow, works already with ServiceNow. So, Sascha, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And
thanks for having me.
A lot as well.
Yeah, thanks. It was really a pleasure, Sascha, Jaap, like always. And good luck at the World Cup.
Thank you. We'll need it. I think you are doing way better than us, probably. Sascha, also, thanks a lot.
Thank you. See you.
Bye-bye.